Proactive safety, safety for the future. So let's talk about safety culture. We've talked a lot about safety culture. Everyone's got an idea about safety culture, but what does it mean? We do a lot of seminars for seafarers and also for managers. And once we ask them the question, where do you think safety culture is? What does it mean to the junior seafarers in your organization? And we used electronic feedback, anonymous electronic feedback. And what surprised us was the trick question on there saying safety culture is not required because it's a key part of SMS already. 25% of the people said that was what it was. What does safety culture mean? You've got a nice slogan. You've got a nice campaign. You encourage people to work safely. But what does it mean to the average seafarer? You're talking about a system. You're talking about a set of values. You're talking about something that's maybe going to make the seafarer's life a little bit better. So you start off with your journey. Where does your safety journey start? What is your safety culture on board? There's different versions of the Bradley curve. Effectively, what you're talking about is this. You're doing it so nobody gets hurt. Safety culture is when everyone on board takes on safety, not just their own safety, but the safety of the people working with them. You're talking about a shipboard family. Again, you talk about it a lot, but what does it mean? Do you let your family members go into an enclosed space and do you act on instinct? I've got to save him because he might be injured. But why has he collapsed? Or why has she collapsed? Do you actually understand what safety means? Or is that something that you just do on the ship? A lot of our companies are saying we do pre-joining briefing. One of the companies said we do it not just for the senior officers, but we encourage all officers before they join the ship to come into the office for a day to make that transition from being on holiday to working back on a ship again. So when you've come back on your ship, you're already in the right system. You've kind of familiarized yourself with what works on board, what the systems are on board, maybe what the electronics are. But what you've done is you've made a transition, so you're already in the right frame of mind to be able to work things properly. With any safety, you're talking about here and where we're going. We've talked about automation. We've talked about reducing seafarers. Seafarers are going to be effectively monitoring systems, yes? But where are we now? We're in a system now where safety is based on what goes wrong. And effectively, if you can stop things going wrong, you've got a good safety culture. It's based on compliance. Humans are the problem. We are the problem. We create all the problems. So if we can stop that, then safety is working. Where do we need to go? We need to go to the next step. Because right now, the DPA, and this is another question, a lot of DPAs tell us, they said, I've got 25, 30 ships. I'm one person, I've got one assistant. I'm getting reports coming in. I don't have time to read these reports. So if you're encouraging near-miss reporting, and we've had everything, from one company where they said 1 near-miss per ship per month is plenty. And another company said we were getting 200 near-misses from each of our ships because everything that was a potential problem was classified as a near-miss. So the point was made earlier. What do you do with these reports? Why do you encourage people to report near-misses? What value do they get out of it? So is a near-miss actually worth anything? Is a stop card worth anything? We've had stop cards where they've said we used a stop card and I didn't get a promotion next trip, or it was investigated by the bosun or the junior officer and they said there was no need to report it to anybody else, and that was the end of that. We've had a stop card where they had a stop card system on board and the AB went on forward in heavy weather and was paralyzed for life. Stop card? What's the point? So what are we doing? What are we defining as safety? What matters? Is it just compliance? Or do we actually mean what we say? Is it what we're trying to do? You talked about Carnival, what they're doing with safety too. You talked about the cruise industry. You talked about the aviation industry. Yes, they're looking at the proactiveness. They're looking at why it goes right. It's mentioned this morning. Do you look at what goes right? You talk about toolbox talks. Everyone's supposed to do a toolbox talk before they undertake any task. How many companies, how many organizations ask for the debrief? How many say, okay, once you finish the task, what went right, what went wrong, how can we do things better next time? Pre-arrival, pre-departure. Do you do a post-arrival? Do you do a post-departure? What went wrong? How can we change things? Were we lucky? Why are we not seen as the solution? We're creating these systems, we're creating these technologies, we're making life potentially easier for the seafarers, for ourselves, whether we're in the office and whether we're ashore. One of the issues that comes in is the authority of the master. Now, we've created a situation now where the master can be second-guessed by anyone in the office. Anyone can pick up the phone and call the master and question him or her and say, why are you doing things, particularly when something goes wrong. One of my friends works in a big ship management company. He's head of crewing, and he said he sits next to the technical department. And every morning he says that at least one superintendent, within 15 minutes of switching on the computer, will pick up the phone. And once they asked him, who are you calling? He said, I'm calling the ship. Why? Oh, there's a report he sent. I need to clarify it. He said, do you know what time it is on the ship? No. Do you know what the master's been doing? Is he tired? Is he fatigued? Is he awake? No, but I need this for my morning meeting. I need this information. I'm more important. How often do you, superintendents, managers, any accident investigation, how often do we actually say, okay, what did I do to contribute to that? We blame the ship very easily. Very easy to blame the seafarer, the master. They found something wrong. Okay, great, now we'll fix that. How often is it me? I made the right call or the wrong call. Masters are telling us now, superintendents are telling us, the master won't make a decision. All they'll do, they get instructions from charterers, instructions from anybody else. They'll forward it to the office and say, please advise. And they say, well, we don't, what's it? We are creating that. It's that ownership. If we're talking about an inclusive safety system, if we're talking about safety begins with me, why not look at me when something goes wrong? It starts with me, so how can I create it? How can I make it better? How can I make sure that everything goes right? Can we make it every time? Possibly not, but can we do it 99% of the time? There's a very good possibility that we can. If we are flexible, if we are prepared to make that choice, if we are prepared to make a decision, thanks. If we are prepared to make a decision and say, I can make a difference, I can help make a difference, I accept my weaknesses and I'm prepared to learn for it. If you look at a simple situation, talking about safety too, a ship in the Mississippi River, speed over the ground 15 knots, sudden loss of steering, so they drop one anchor. That's not working. They let go more, 10 shackles dropped, and the next situation goes, the anchor's lost. So what does the company's accident investigation focus on? How to avoid losing the anchor again. Okay. Safety 1 and Safety 2. There's a very nice book which talks about it. You're effectively talking about either what works or how did we do it last time that it worked perfectly, and how can we make sure that we do it again? What is it that's missing when something goes wrong? Can we make sure that we are more proactive rather than reactive? Safety, loss prevention has always been reactive. How can we be proactive? How can we make it more useful? We've looked at the bridge, the modern bridge. We've looked at the old bridge, or a bridge where you have 5 or 6 people on board. A very valid point was made. You got masters and chief officer on 6 on, 6 off. You got fatigue. You've got sometimes the lookouts sent down because they're tired or they've got to do something else. So you've got one person on the bridge who may have been on board, on watch for a period of time, fatigue or no fatigue. And we're expecting them to navigate the ship safely. Why are we creating that situation? Why do we think that's acceptable? You have a good way of doing things. We've talked about how you can apply that to merchant ships where you have 2 or 3 people on board. You're empowering the masters and the officers. But are you really? What does the risk assessment focus on? Does the risk assessment focus on getting the right thing done, or making sure that everyone in the team, whether it's mooring, whether it's picking up a pilot or entering in close space, knows exactly what they've got to do and understands their role in it? Safety 1 and Safety 2 are complementary. We cannot do one without the other. We can work things making sure that we allocate the right resources. It's not just numbers. It's the right number of people, the right person for the right job, making sure that you're doing the training. Training, we talk about it all the time, absolutely true. Without that, building up that knowledge, that confidence, the ability to react in the right way every time, all we're doing is hoping with our fingers crossed. Navigational audits, what do we look at? Are you complying with procedures? You look at human behavior. If you have an accident investigation, what do? Do you find out what goes wrong? Or do you actually ask the person, tell me about your day. Tell me what you did today, and try and figure out why the situation arose. Near-miss reporting, why not encourage positive reporting as well? Again, if you're not going to do anything with it, what's the point? Allow time at audits to observe human behavior. Many everyday events can work if you think positively and you work about it. You look at weather conditions. I had a situation like this. I was following weather routing when I was a master, and I had headwinds, and I was in ballast and making 6.5 knots. Ships laden, container ships were going past me. I made a decision to alter course so to put the wind behind me. I lost 12 hours but gained a day and a half. I had to justify it, but it was right. So why don't we give the power back to the masters, to the officers again? Crew trained to adapt accidents. Proactive approach, investment in productivity. Reward good safety behavior. View humans as a safeguard and not a liability. When people see safety as a way of life rather than a requirement, then you're starting off in the right direction. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.